It is a great honor and a privilege to introduce Vanda and Luc Albinski. We're here in Tel Aviv, in Israel, and you've just come from Poland and you attended the memorial of the Warsaw Ghetto uprising. So Luc, if you could tell us a little bit about your journey and your discovery being Jewish and the amazing work that you've done. And
yes, it's all, well, look, we did all these things.
And Luc, you and your mom are just incredible and inspirational.
Thank you. Yes, so I found out about my Jewish heritage when I was 20. It was after the Berlin Wall had come down. I decided for the first time in my life to go to Poland. I went to Poland in April 1990. The Berlin Wall had come down in November 89. Poland had its first non-communist government in power, so we felt it was safe for me to travel there. And I met my two beautiful cousins for the first time, Agnieszka and Monica, the daughters of my mom's younger brother Stash, and they told me all about my grandmother Halina, and the fact that she was Jewish, the fact that she was in the Jewish ghetto, the fact that she was murdered in Treblinka. All of this was completely new to me. I hadn't suspected anything like this. I'd been brought up as a Polish Catholic. I knew all about my grandfather on the Polish Catholic side, who was picked up by the SS in August 1944 during the Warsaw Uprising. He was taken to Auschwitz. He was in Auschwitz in September 1944, and then he was shipped off to Buchenwald, where he died on the 28th of December 1944. So I knew all about my Polish Catholic grandfather and his tragic fate at the hands of the Nazis, but I knew nothing about the Jewish side of my family. And thanks to Monica and to Agnieszka, I was able to, for the first time, learn about my Jewish side of the family, and then talk to my mom and my dad and start this whole journey of discovery, and a real journey it's been. One of the things we've done is we've produced this book, which is called the Warsaw Covenants, and it's all about the family in Poland, what they did in Poland pre-war, where they came from, and all about the fate of my grandmother Halina, who was murdered in Treblinka on the 12th of September 1942. And now I'll read from the preface of the book, which will give you a good sense of why I wrote it. And then I'll read a poem by my favorite Polish poet Zbigniew Herbert that speaks to these Varsovian covenants, these promises that were made in Warsaw, that were made by Jews, by Catholics, or Poles. In writing this book, it was my intention to leave my children, Tasha, Alex, and Adam, my nieces and nephews, and the next generation, a living testament to those who populate these pages. I wanted to celebrate the quiet heroism during some of the darkest times of Poland's 1,000-year history. The great Polish poet Zbigniew Herbert was thinking of people like them when he wrote his wonderful poem, I Gave My Word. To commemorate their sacrifice, I have produced this book, a small stone cast in the ongoing resistance to the abominable ideas of the Holocaust. Foremost among those deserving celebration is my incredible grandmother, who lost her life, but whose efforts and those of her friends and co-workers kept my mother, my most valued collaborator, alive. The heroes of this tale, the Rothsteins, the Trojanowskis, the Ratlinskis, the Albinskis and the Mazowieckis, were all patriots, passionate Poles who embodied the best qualities of an educated, tolerant Varsovian elite under the Second Polish Republic, binding themselves to others even in the shadows of annihilation. I wanted to record the covenants made and kept in Warsaw by the members of the family that ultimately gave me my life. These Varsovian covenants were not ordinary promises, they were life-giving and life-taking. They were made while facing death during the long, brutal years of Nazi occupation of the city. The consequences were death for some, exile for others, recognition for none. 8 decades later, I intend to correct this omission, and so I've written this book as a beginning of a remedy. To forget these heroes would be to forget who we are and where we have come from. With this book, I hope their memory will endure beyond my lifespan. So I wrote these words in 2019 as the preface to the book called Varsovian Covenants. Here you have the Polish version, Warszawskie Przymierza.
Yes.
So the poem that I refer to in my preface is a poem by Zbigniew Herbert, and it's entitled I Gave My Word. I gave my word, and I was very young, and common sense told me not to give my word. I could easily say, I'll give it some thought. What's the big hurry? It's not a train schedule. I'll give my word after graduation, after military service, after I make a home. But time exploded. There was no before, there was no after. In the blinding present, you had to choose. So I gave my word. A word. A noose round my neck. An ultimate word. In the rare moments when everything is light and becomes transparent, I think to myself, my word, how I'd like to take my word back. It doesn't last for long. The world's axis screeches, people pass away, as do landscapes. Colored rings of time, but the word I gave is stuck in my throat.
It's very powerful, very emotional. So Luc, can I just ask you, when you found out about your grandmother, how was your reaction?
Well, I was very, very curious to know more. And that's why we started this whole process of researching my family past. We used a wonderful Polish researcher, Wiesław Tomczak, who uncovered incredible amounts of detail and beautiful photos about my family in Poland. They were an incredibly accomplished family there. They had many, many businesses. 5 years after Chrysler was founded in the US, they had the Chrysler dealership for the whole of Poland. The Chrysler dealership building in Warsaw won an architectural award for the most outstanding building of the year. I think it was 1926 or 27. And then they set up this incredibly innovative chemicals plant in Kutno, where they produced synthetic rubber. And it was the first place in the world to produce synthetic rubber outside of Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union. And my great uncle Mieczysław went to New York for the New York Expo, where he demonstrated the synthetic rubber technology at the Polish pavilion during the New York Expo. And of course, World War II 1st of September broke out during the time that he was in New York at the New York Expo. And in fact, interestingly enough, this is what saved my great uncle and his family from the Shoah, because this technology was considered so strategic, particularly after the Japanese had conquered Southeast Asia and had taken over all the natural rubber plantations, that the British Secret Service smuggled out my great uncle and his family and the chemist that had all the know-how out of Nazi-occupied Poland. They went through Nazi Germany to Italy and boarded a ship that sailed to the US, because Italy wasn't at war with the US yet in 1940. So this is how some Polish Jews managed to escape the Shoah, traveling probably first class with all the right papers through Nazi Germany to Italy to board the ship to the US. And so we had an incredibly accomplished, very assimilated Polish family, and we did a lot of research about that. And then Maria Ciesielska, a wonderful Polish doctor, she wrote a book about, she was haunted by the fate of her peers, the 830 plus doctors in the Warsaw Ghetto that lived, worked and perished there. And she felt that someone needed to talk about them and to record what they did, how they valiantly built a medical system in the ghetto, operated 3 hospitals, did medical research, organized a university in the ghetto where students could learn to become doctors, organized a nursing school in the ghetto. It was just extraordinary. And so she wrote this wonderful book called The Doctors of the Warsaw Ghetto, 500-page piece of incredible academic research. Spent years of her life in the archives in Warsaw and Yad Vashem to write this book. And what Tali Nates, the director of the Johannesburg Holocaust Center, and I did was to get this book translated into English, edited and published in the US. Now it's available on Amazon, The Doctors of the Warsaw Ghetto. So yes, it's been a journey. And then we did the documentary about my mom and my grandmother called Nobody Told Me. I did that with a wonderful film director called Sean O'Sullivan, who's done many wonderful films with the Johannesburg Holocaust Center. So we did that film with Tali Nates. And my most recent projects have been around several things. One is that I've written a play which also celebrates my grandmother's life and death, and the doctors that this incredible group of Polish Catholic and Polish Jewish doctors that were so bound together and so determined to help each other. So I've written this play, and then I've gone back to my mom's hometown of Kukno, where she was born, and I'm working with the local mayor there, who's incredibly supportive, and local activists to rehabilitate the Kutno Jewish Cemetery, which at the moment is an abandoned field. Dogs run about there, children play. It's really very sad. But it was for 300 years a Jewish cemetery. There's some famous rabbis buried there, like Rabbi Trunk. And so what I want to do now is I've got these 300 matzavot sitting in a warehouse in Kutno, crying out to be put back in the cemetery. And so what I'm working with the local municipality, who are incredibly supportive, is to rehabilitate the cemetery and restore the matzavot to the cemetery, and recreate it as a Jewish cemetery. So that's one of my projects. And then another project that I have involves the Katyn massacre. You may know that about 50% of the Polish officer corps, which is just a staggering number, was murdered by Stalin. They were taken prisoner by Stalin in 1939 when the Soviet Union invaded the eastern half of Poland. Many people forget that the Nazis and the Soviets were in alliance initially, and that the Soviets invaded the eastern half of Poland. Polish army was being pushed back by the German assault in the west. And then on the 18th of September, the Soviets invaded. And whilst they let all the soldiers go, they took all the officers prisoners of war. So they took, tens of thousands of officers as prisoners of war. And then Stalin decided to kill all of them. So they were all shot a bullet in the head. This is how he dealt with prisoners of war. This is how he dealt with the Polish officer corps. And that included everyone from generals to admirals to colonels, majors, captains, lieutenants. And among those officers were 500 Jewish officers who gave their life for the Second Republic, for Poland. And so I wanted also to acknowledge their memory, so I set up a foundation there, and we are going in a few days' time to the Katyn Memorial in the Judean Hills outside Jerusalem to be part of a ceremony with the Polish embassy to commemorate the Katyn massacre and the sacrifice of these Polish Jewish officers at all ranks. Obviously lots of lieutenants, but also majors, also lieutenant colonels, and the chief rabbi of the Polish army, Baruch Steinberg, all murdered by Stalin. So it's also something that I'm busy with.
And Luc, I just have to ask you, with regard to your grandmother, Dr. Helena Rutstein, when you heard the story, because she is an unsung hero, she really is, and she's unique, and her name isn't so well known as it should be. How did you feel knowing that you had a grandmother who gave the ultimate sacrifice?
Well, I mean, I feel deeply honored to have such an incredible grandmother, and with that honor comes a responsibility to support and honor and commemorate her memory, and the memory of what she and her friends and her colleagues and her fellow doctors represented in terms of selflessness, in terms of heroism, because we must remember that the Polish Catholic doctors like Andrzej Trojanowski or Natalia Radlinska, they were taking incredible risks by harboring Jewish kids. My mom recently met with Eva Trojanowska. She was the Andrzej Trojanowski's daughter, and they played together in Trojanowski's apartment after Wanda left the ghetto. Now, if they had been found, everyone would have been murdered. Andrzej, his wife Stenia, Eva, Wanda, they would all have been murdered. And Andrzej Trojanowski's surgery, interestingly enough, on Marszałkowska Street was right by a German office, some sort of German trade office. And Eva Trojanowska says that Andrzej always felt it's better to be right under the nose of the Germans. That's where they would least suspect that there was a Jewish smuggling operation underway to try and save Polish Jews. There was a whole organization that was set up that was supported by the London government in exile called Żegota. Żegota got funds from the Polish government in exile, and Żegota was tasked with doing everything possible to save Polish Jews. It was an incredible organization. It forged many thousands of documents. It organized places where Jews could stay. It organized medicine for them. It organized food for them. And it was an incredible organization that had the official blessing of the Polish government in exile. And Dr. Chernowski was a member of that organization. And as part of his role in it, he performed many reverse circumcisions, where he would reverse the circumcision for Jewish males on the Aryan side so that they could survive. So he performed those kind of operations too, to save Jewish lives. It was all about saving Jewish lives.
I think he was awarded Chasidei Olam,
Yes,
right? Just amongst the nations.
as was Natalia Radlinska, yes. And those two were instrumental in getting my mom out and getting her three brothers out of the ghetto through the courthouse, which still stands to this day. It was the most incredible situation where there was an operating courthouse with a Jewish side and an Aryan side that operated through the Jewish ghetto. It was all part of this Nazi plan of making it appear that it's a normal, normalizing the abnormal. So they had this courthouse, they had a Jewish entrance and an Aryan entrance, and if you could pay off the right people, you could enter through the Jewish side and exit through the Aryan side. And that's how my mom and her three brothers exited the ghetto. But my grandmother, on 2 occasions, declined to save herself and decided that her mission, her purpose was to stay with the patients and to go to her death in Treblinka with them. And she was not alone. There were several other doctors that made the same choice, including, of course, the most famous of them all, which was Janusz Korczak.
And your great-grandfather was in the same class in medical school?
Yes, so my great-grandfather, Dr. Kohn, was a classmate of Janusz Korczak. They both graduated from the medical faculty at Warsaw University in 1905. So there you can see the Chrysler ads that appeared in Polish newspapers in the 20s and 30s. Our family got the rights to distribute Chrysler all across Poland 5 years after Chrysler was established in the US. And you can see the various ads, and you can also see a picture from a newspaper showing the commemorative breakfast that they held to commemorate the opening of the first Chrysler dealership in Poland. So my family owned the rights to the Chrysler brand in Poland. And then we've got here this incredible picture of the Kutno Chemicals plant. It was done on the 20th anniversary of Polish independence in 1938. Poland became independent in 1918. And you've got all the staff of the chemicals plant. And right in the center you've got my grandfather Władysław Rothstein, the production director, and my great uncle Mieczysław Rothstein. And this is this plant that produced this world-beating technology, one of the first plants in the world to produce synthetic rubber out of ethanol. And this technology ultimately saved Mieczysław's life and the life of his family, because the British Secret Service smuggled them out of Poland so that they could use this technology to produce synthetic rubber, so that the Allied war effort didn't grind to a halt, because without rubber there would be no trucking, no jeeps, no ability to actually wage war. Once the Japanese had taken over the natural rubber plantations, synthetic rubber became an absolute imperative. So yeah, all of this was invented in Kutno. The only other places in the world where they had synthetic rubber technology at the time was Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union. So very interesting story there.
And you have a picture of the car, of the Chrysler?
Yes, I'll show you that now. This is just another picture of the factory in Kutno where they were building a new wing to it in 1938. With all
Does the factory still exist?
The factory's been torn down. The only thing that exists is the chimney. Chimney is used
In
as a...
89, some people who was ruling the director and so on somehow destroyed our family.
And here's a beautiful picture of the Chrysler with Metis of my great uncle's two daughters standing on the car. Beautiful, beautiful old car. Really
But what I
wonderful.
like to say also, because these are from my father family, but my mother has also very interesting father, because he was a writer. I have the books full of his poetry, and collaborate with, he was also a doctor, and at the same time he collaborated with Polish cabarety, jak to powiedzieć?
Cabaret.
Cabaret, you know, before the war, and he sent his, poetry, and he discussed with them and so on. Also, then they have been also in some way special person, but from other side.
Yeah, that was Dr. Henrik Lucian Kohn, who was born in 1880 and who graduated from Warsaw Medical University in 1904 with Janusz Korczak, whose real name was Henrik Goldschmidt.
And then his story is also very beautiful poetry which he wrote.
And tomorrow you're going to go to Hostage Square.
Yes, yes. So my mom's going to give a speech at Hostage Square, and they're going to also show the film.
At Hostage Square. That's very special.
But my mother needs some kind of...
No, her name and her memory should be for eternal blessing.
Yes, it
Thank
was
you.
special person.
Okay, in the documentary you see pictures or film of Warsaw being bombed at the beginning of the war, and then you see these incredible colored shots of Warsaw after the war, the ruins of Warsaw, the ruins of the Warsaw ghetto. It's quite extraordinary, and in both cases this is documentary film material that was produced by Julian Bryan, who was an American filmmaker who by chance happened to be traveling to Warsaw as war broke out. And he arrived in Warsaw just as Warsaw essentially was encircled by the German army, and was besieged, because there was a siege of Warsaw that lasted 2-3 weeks, and he was in Warsaw during the siege of Warsaw. He was pretty much the only journalist left in Warsaw, and he stayed in the now empty US consulate building in Warsaw, and he filmed the bombing of the city and the killing of civilians, and then ultimately when he left the city, what he did was he wrapped all the film around his body so that it wouldn't be confiscated by the Germans, And in that way, with the film wrapped around his body, he was able to actually extricate himself from now Nazi-occupied Poland, and this film was survived. And then he came back to Poland in 45, 46 and filmed the ruins of Warsaw and the ruins of the Warsaw Ghetto. And we're very grateful to his son, Sam Bryan, who gave us the permission to use this footage, which I think immeasurably enhanced the quality of our documentary, Nobody Told Me.
So Wanda, you must be so incredibly proud of your son for what he has done and what he continues to do.
Yes, he is just going to our roots, our family.
And Luc, likewise with your mom. Your mom is incredible. She's one of the youngest 88-year-olds I've ever met. And you should just have good health. But really, I think you both are just remarkable, really.
Not me. Luc is remarkable because he has a lot of energy and he wanted to find out about his ancestor.
And Luc, what message do you give to your children and to the future generations?
Well, I think it's really important to honor the people that came before you and to recognize the incredible virtues that they displayed in the most horrific circumstances. I think we can be very proud of our generation of youngsters in the way they stood up to face the challenges of today as well, with a lot of courage and bravery. So I think that those values do get transmitted down the generations, and we must, above all else, always retain our humanity. I think that's incredibly important.
So I want to thank you both for just the most
I think education of nation is more important than development only commerce or industry. First of all, it must be really good education, good understanding of problems, and which be there before Poland and also Israel.
Well, I just want to mention that I'm so grateful that we're going to be showing the documentary, Nobody Told Me. I think it is one of the most amazing documentaries I've ever seen. And your mother, Dr. Helena Rutstein, is not only an unsung hero, but she is, in my opinion, one of the ultimate heroes. Not only in Jewish history, but in world history. What she did and the ultimate sacrifice that she made is just legendary. It's just incredible. So I want to thank you both. It's been such an honor and a privilege. I want to thank you so much, and you should just continue in the most amazing work that you do.
Thank you, and thank you, Les, for your incredible work.
Yes.
We've learned all the interviews you've done that otherwise would have resulted in stories being lost for forever. So it's really, really very, very important and honorable work that you do.
It's very kind of you, but this story of your grandmother, of Dr. Helena Rutstein, it should be, everybody should know the story because it is so inspirational and it's so important.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
She went through and everywhere in Poland and also in problem of Jewish.
She's amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.